Reserve my right to speak.
I thank the member for Robertson. The question is that the motion be agreed to, and we'll call the member for Chifley.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. It is very good that we are talking about this right here, on the floor of the Australian Parliament, talking about the value of start-ups to both the nation and the economy. It is a discussion that is long overdue, and I certainly welcome it. And the reason I welcome it is this. A few months ago, well, basically at the start of the year, and this gives you a sense of how much things have changed. At the start of the year, I had start-ups say to me, if you're a farmer or a miner and you knocked on a minister's door, you'd get through quick smart. But if you're a start-up, a small enterprise, you had very little chance of getting attention. Now, the perspective is completely different. I think this is a good thing. I think it's good that both sides of politics recognise that this is an area that demands, deserves attention, and that we should be doing whatever we can to make sure we've got an environment where they emerge, because these are the enterprises that in the future will be creating the jobs and the wealth for this nation, and we need a longer-term view about how to support them. And we have a lot to be proud about. When you look at all the start-ups in this country that have achieved on a global scale, not just in a local scale, but on a global scale, and I think of Campaign Monitor, I think of Ingogo, I think of Invoice2Go, I think of Nitro, I think of carsales.com.au, I think of Seek, I think of Atlassian, Freelancer, to name a few. You also have a Catch of the Day, REA Group, 99 Designs. There are a stack of these companies that have emerged in the Australian environment that are doing tremendous things, both here and overseas, and they should be recognised. And the reason I list them here is because they should be recognised on the floor of Parliament and thanked for their contribution. You know, in this place, politicians tend to think that they change the world one page of Hansard at a time, when in actual fact a lot of these young entrepreneurs are changing the world one app at a time. And we need to work out how we get more of them, and it's critical. From the Labor perspective, from the federal opposition perspective, we get it. We have been in this space for a number of years consulting with start-ups about what it will take to ensure more of them emerge, that we can see more green shoots, and from there the big companies, the big players emerge that will create the jobs. And there's a sense of urgency on our part because we know technology is going to churn through jobs. It will have an impact on 13 out of 19 industry sectors in this country. We need to be prepared. And so from our discussions, we have been thinking about what we need to do to make sure that we can create the jobs of the future. And there is a sense of urgency, particularly for Labor representatives, because the people that we represent, by and large, are going to be affected by technology. We need to make sure that, again, we are prepared. And instead of investing valuable energy in resistance, we need to embrace that change and see what we can do to look after those affected, those vulnerable, on the way through. And so what we've done is think, well, we've got an economy in transition. We don't necessarily get the same bang for the buck out of resources and the mining boom that we once did. We need to recognise the role of start-ups and champion their economic and employment potential. And so how do we do it? And it's all about flow. It's about the flow of people, skills, talent. It's about the flow of capital. It's also about the flow of ideas in an environment, in a culture that supports that type of entrepreneurial activity. And on our side of the fence, we've released 2 waves of policy, starting from the budget and reply given by the Leader of the Opposition through to recent announcements as well. We've looked at, for example, on the skills and the flow of talent, coding in schools, making sure that we get young people already thinking about computational thinking, building the STEM teacher base, getting STEM graduates to put back into the community by teaching the ones that are coming through, establishing a national coding in schools centre, providing 100,000 STEM award degrees, of which many will have their HECS debt written off on graduation, a start-up year to address the low rate of start-up formation in this country, ensuring that university graduates stay on an extra year, build an enterprise, be able to draw off an income contingent loan from the government, and we get to see more start-ups created and, as I said, address this very low level of start-up formation in this country. Another great idea that we've certainly put forward, inspired by the start-up sector who said they want to see this happen. We've also, for example, encouraged visa reform, the creation of a start-up entrepreneurs visa that would bring people to these shores with ideas and capital to support the local ecosystem, a graduate entrepreneurs visa to make sure that people who are trained from overseas in our universities have an incentive to stay on and build an enterprise here. We've also bound all this through a proposal on the Labor side to establish a national digital workforce plan that will address the massive skills shortages that are affecting this sector, and to also ensure that we get more women and more mature age workers into a sector that is crying out for more support, and that we also ensure that our small and medium enterprises get on the digital bandwagon and start changing their businesses as well. Again, we've put that forward. On the issue of the flow of capital, we've recommended, for example, the $500 million Smart Investment Fund that would partner with VCs and licensed fund managers. We want to work with industry on start-up finance, which will be a partial guarantee scheme to improve access to finance to micro-businesses. And we've also recommended an innovation investment partnership, and in actual fact we kicked it off in Parliament 2 weeks ago, bringing together superannuation funds that represent the 4th largest pool of national savings on the planet, and trying to work out a way to build investment bridges between them, venture capital and early-stage innovation to see the emergence of more companies. And we did that here because we think innovation should start now. It shouldn't wait for an election to happen. And in culture, the most important piece, we need to have as a nation an ability to celebrate entrepreneurism, dilute the stigma around failure and be more accepting of a heightened focus by government and business in this area. And politicians can play a huge role right here. I'll go back to that miner or farmer example I mentioned earlier, where startups felt they were being ignored. They're also saying to us, it's great both sides of politics are talking about startups, but how come you talk about it in different rooms? You're not working as one. There is a hunger within the startup community to see both sides of politics working actively together, and they don't want to see one idea torn down by the other side and vice versa. And that's why Labor has said we're prepared to work with the government on this agenda, that we prioritise it as on the national list of things that need to be tackled in this country in terms of supporting the economy, jobs in the future, and that we're prepared, and we've demonstrated, for example, a preparedness to work with the government on employee share option reform. We've extended to the government a commitment to work in a bipartisan way on equity crowdfunding. And so the test is we're prepared to do it because, as I said, innovation doesn't wait for a federal election. This is a long-term agenda. We need to start working on it now. And so obviously we wait with interest, as others, for the innovation statement that's being prepared with the government, and we've extended our commitment to work cooperatively with the government on it. And we'll also be interested to see as well in this statement if the government's prepared to work with us. And in actual fact, if we're supposed to be leaving by the curbside the old politics and we're supposed to be able to work together, I'd make this modest recommendation to the government. If they want to innovate in this statement, demonstrate in the statement on the list of things that we've put forward as a result of our consultations with the start-up sector, we extend this invitation to the government. In your innovation statement, when you list your ideas, also list what you're prepared to work with the opposition on, be it on visa reform, be it on bringing in a start-up year, be it on working together on a national digital workforce plan, be it on issues, for example, of finding ways to get super and VC working together. We are happy to do this, but it does take commitment from both sides. Now, if it's just a statement that represents all that the government wants to do and then demands that the opposition basically fall into line on it, that is not what was expected by the start-up sector. The start-up sector expect us to come up with ideas that we can work with one another on to advance the national interest, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens on that front. I do have to say, if I may, in one element, reflect on something that I am concerned about. I had previously very fruitful discussions with the former Small Business Minister, Bruce Bilson, on equity crowdfunding. We had a number of meetings and we're prepared to work collaboratively on that. We haven't heard that from the new minister. I wrote to her last week, the Assistant Treasurer, extending a commitment to work with them on equity crowdfunding, because there are concerns that exist in the start-up community about some of the proposals that are being floated, for instance, that would see equity crowdfunding limited only to public companies. If companies are listed already, they've gone through the process of getting their equity that way. This is for start-ups. Start-ups need to be able to get money, and they need to be able to do it in a way where they're not constrained by the restrictions imposed by corporations law. Again, we are very concerned as an opposition about these proposals and await with interest as to whether or not the government's serious, if they're talking about bipartisanship, of meeting with us, briefing us on their thinking and being able to work together on this matter. It is important. This is too important a platform, the whole area of early-stage innovation, the creation of new businesses and new enterprises, the creation of jobs into the future, the training up of young people in this country, opening up opportunity. This cannot be a victim of the old politics. It demands a new approach, and we hope this parliament will be able to usher in that new approach.
I thank the member for Chifley. The time allotted for this debate has expired. The debate is adjourned and the resumption